Hello, everyone. Thanks for sticking around for this because we are transitioning from luxury travel to luxury hospitality and real estate. One of the things I really love about Robb Report, what I love about what we do in the magazine, the website, and events like this is we have access to just some of the best people in the world when it comes to talking about trends. And in the world of real estate and hospitality, there is no bigger trend at the moment than branded residences. So Tina, my first question is, what kicked that off? Like, who in that industry looking down the line said, this is going to be the thing, 2023, 2024, going down the road?
Well, I think, first of all, thank you for the introduction and tee up. I'm always very passionate about this topic because it's so interesting how the industry has evolved. And to answer your question, I think looking back 10 years, 20 years ago, and this has been my whole career, so I've seen everything, is the fact that there's so much demand for a certain lifestyle. People are investing in real estate and they're investing in time in their families, and this is a fantastic option for people to be able to enjoy a certain lifestyle. And it's even easier as a brand extension from a hotel perspective. You know, it's all the amenities and services you have access to. It's all the hospitality. And then along comes the real estate. So if you look over time, you know, at the current moment, there are about 185 projects globally and 130 or so in the pipeline, which is extraordinary.
It's a huge number.
All over the world. And about 60% of those are in North America. So what we start to do in looking at our portfolio of hotels and resorts on the Montage and Pendry side is we're trying to add value to the development, but also creating more experiences and more opportunities for residents to enjoy this lifestyle.
Can you talk a little bit about that? Because obviously the amenities are such a draw and that lifestyle that you referenced. Now, I mean, with all these properties around the world, how are you figuring out what works where? How are you cultivating this for a particular place while still keeping the sort of brand that people are buying into?
That's a great question. So when we're conceptualizing a project and looking at a market, we certainly are leveraging and taking all the qualities and values of what's important to our owners. Everything is so highly personalized that we're able to create not just a checklist of we have a pool and we have dedicated staff and all of those things, but we start to really look at what day-to-day life would be for someone in the generations. The market landscape is also changing as well as those needs. So we're constantly researching and really being in touch on a lot of it is qualitative and not quantitative.
Sure. Give us some specific examples. Like what are some things that maybe surprised you about the research that you were doing and then led to maybe something that surprised, you know, the owners themselves?
I think the greatest surprises that we have are really driven by our staff and what they can do. And, you know, I always kind of break it down to 4 characteristics of why people buy or why they're attracted to kind of fully serviced living. And most of the time, they're second homes. They're not there necessarily full-time, but it's time, it's connection, it's security and service. And along those lines, when you hear about the anecdotes and the stories from, you know, things that are not pleasant, riding in ambulances, and we have, you know, the real family situations that happen, our staff becomes an extension of these families over time. We're watching children grow, we're watching families change. In addition to that, we see specific examples of how our owners travel. So while they're at home in Los Cabos, then they may be traveling to Laguna Beach, for example. So we're following them and we're attending really to all of their needs.
So meaning there's communication, there's knowledge transfer between these properties.
Yes.
So
It's seamless.
They're having a better service experience.
It's everything from provisioning to itineraries. It's really any wish, obviously, that we're able to fulfill, but most of it's anticipatory.
Sure. When you have a hospitality brand and residences, there's something of a balance, right, between, say, group spaces for homeowners, access to hotel amenities and services, but also a sense of privacy. How do you fine-tune that balance?
Well, what we do is we try to create offerings and spaces. It's so much about gathering in community. So I'll use West Hollywood as an example, where we have the hotel on one side of the piazza, and then we have a private residential condominium building across the way that they have their own private pool and wine room and boardroom and valet and reception. And then at the point where they want to engage in the activity and the vibrancy of the hotel, they simply walk out their front door and then they retreat back.
Huh. So one thing I wonder about that interplay between hospitality and residential, what is there learning that happens between the two?
Yes.
Do you learn about hospitality from the homeowners? Do you learn, in the other direction as well?
Yes, as someone who oversees a business that's not the hotel, but an extension of the hotel, and really reliant upon the service delivery aspects and the interaction and collaboration all behind the scenes with our staff, one of the things that our hotel associates learn is that these are guests that never check out. So we have to cater to their needs in a very specific way. While still delivering the level of service, but we're doing everything from property management, homeowners associations, it's and everything in between, not just hospitality. So our hospitality colleagues focus on the real moments and the experiences and curating those things, and they help us execute it on the other side.
Going back to the amenities, I know that you're a gearhead, and I wanted to ask, just specifically, you mentioned something we were talking before about some ultimate garage. Like this to me sounded like such a great example because it wasn't even something that I would have thought, it would be possible. Right?
Yes, it's possible, and may have been one of my ideas and one of my favorite things in my career, but it's the small things sometimes. But we had the opportunity to collaborate with McLaren and create a super garage within our Pendry Residences West Hollywood community. And if you were to purchase the Terrace Estate penthouse, it came with the super garage and a McLaren. It became an incredible moment to talk about what our lifestyle is like and add the special touches, again, this personalization and what we know attracts this type of resident.
So going into something like that, just to get into the details a bit, because how does something like that come together? How do you pick McLaren and not Porsche or Lamborghini or something? That has to be tied to a place, that has to be tied to a customer profile or demographic. And then what did you need to get McLaren on board with that?
Well, those are all good questions, and it was sort of like picking your favorite child. But we were really looking at some of the preferences of our owners in their collections of automobiles. And I personally know many of our owners as well. And one of the things that we were trying to achieve was something that was a one of a kind. Not everyone had access to it was a 765 LT that had just come out and was unveiled. So when approaching McLaren, we said, we would like to be able to also promote this for you as a one of a kind. And it is a perfect synergy between our lifestyle and our brand and McLaren. So they were very open to doing that for us. And we had just a really great time designing the garage, envisioning what it would look like. And we also know, based on the sort of nature of the collection, that people would also likely maybe get another McLaren or have us help curate some other cars to put in the garage. Right.
Again, that access that Paul was talking about before.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I wonder, do you see sort of some of the competition within branded residences coming from, for example, automakers, coming from restaurants, right?
We do. Yes.
So, if somebody kind of loves your brand and they also love Nobu, for example, and they go, what's the competitive advantage from the hospitality side?
So we currently have 15 hotels operating. We have 7 Montages, which are now all Forbes 5-star designated, which is a really lovely accolade and is a testament to the brand. And then we have our Pendry Hotels and Resorts. So we really are still in a stage as well with the size of our collection and the experience of the last 20 plus years. We've always had branded residences to really deliver an experience that is incredibly personalized. And that's a big advantage for us. And that's everything from our founder, Alan Firstman, who also personally knows many of our owners, and our staff and the people and the culture is what resonates. And we have many owners now that own at multiple locations. They're really part of our family and our collection and our portfolio. The way that we approach the business is very specific, and I think people appreciate that, and we create value. And on the investment side, long term, even from a real estate standpoint, the premiums are there, and people are seeing financial returns, and they're seeing time return to them in the experiences and memories as well. That's what everyone wants for their family.
Sure. I noticed recently, too, you have done a collaboration with Tracy Anderson. Is that
Yes,
right? Now,
yes.
is that hospitality and residential?
Yes.
Is there and
That's
so
a
when
great
you're
question.
looking for these, I'd like to hear a little more about that. But when you're looking at these going forward, are you always thinking about both now?
Yes,
Yeah.
we are. But we're thinking about both, but when we think about the residential side, we want something more exclusive, more private, access that perhaps our hotel guests, don't have access to. And sometimes it's really sort of the next level of how can we expand, that type of offering where, she'll go into your residence, for example, instead of, something where you're joining in a
Right.
more class environment.
Which,
if
I
you
mean,
will.
I wonder what that waiting list would be like
Yeah.
otherwise, right?
Exactly.
And speaking of, because I think one of the things that we've seen across this sort of generational transfer is that focus on wellness, right? That focus on work-life balance and how that manifests itself. Are you seeing the same, and are
We
you
are.
programming towards that?
We are. In fact, it's been starting inside the home. So we have a partnership with Delos, for example, and everything is about healthy living inside. So we've taken our actual product and we install different types of air filtration, water, light systems that are all on the wellness spectrum, so that when they're in their home, they've covered that piece of it. And then we complement that with other types of programs that are customized to people's lifestyles. For example, we're about to open at Pendry Nadarar, which is 1 hour outside of Manhattan, and we have there a 12-acre working farm.
This is the New Jersey property
in
with
New
the
Jersey.
agricultural focus?
Yes, yes. So it's so much about being in this connection to the outdoors. And so we're continuously looking not only for the places, but the programs, the resources that we have that we can bring to our owners.
I mean, I have to assume that there's a tremendous amount of research that goes into that. How do you know, for example, okay, we're going to open this and there will be demand enough for an agricultural focused property an hour outside of Manhattan, right? What elements are going into that? What are the sort of teams who are involved in putting that together?
It's a very tight group, a very small executive team, and we come together and we start looking at all the research. We know what our competitors are doing. We know what's out there in the market. We're listening to our owners, and it's not one magic bullet, and it's not a data report. In particular, on the residential side, we don't have access to a lot of data, so we're constantly looking at what everyone else is doing, trying to take those attributes to create something really special. We do take cues from our owners. They are never shy about telling us. It's funny because we'll be like, we'd like to send out a survey. We're like, we tell you everything.
Right, yeah.
Why do I need to fill out a survey?
I'm giving you a survey with my mouth right now.
Exactly, every day. So we take those things. And, we're also looking at the diversity of our portfolio. That's not something we have, for example, as a current offering. So it complements.
Yeah. So you're I mean, what you're talking about is a taste level thing, right?
Yes.
Like you're creating a product that you trust will, the demand will be there if you
Yes.
execute it correctly.
Because our owners trust us as well.
Right.
We know what their expectations are. And a lot of times they're willing, they want to be part of that at the very beginning. And they've made an investment in our brand themselves. So it's a really interesting dynamic.
Does that transfer generationally? Are you seeing that now?
We are seeing
somebody
that.
growing up with that, with the Pendry as a brand, and then that to them it's something from their childhood maybe, and that's what they want
It
to invest
is.
in as an adult.
It is. And if you look at Montage, for example, I mean, this is a real life thing. Alan Firstman, his son is the co-founder of Pendry Hotels, which is really our next generation of luxury. So we've taken it really even from that level and designing an entire brand based on this profile of what children, how they grew up in this ultra luxury space and what's different about it and what's new and what the vibrancy that we can bring to it.
One of the things that's interesting that we're seeing in other categories is, you have younger generations of buyers and owners, but they might be quite young and they don't maybe have the experience and they want to do things differently from their parents. For example, yachts, it creates some tension where we want this to happen. It's like, it cannot be built, right? Have you come across that?
We have. I think part of that is the relationship that we build, and that trust, again, I think is so important in the luxury space in particular. It's not very automated. It's all very high touch. And so what we try to do, though, is really create products and services and locations whereby everything is effortless. So we kind of go to, we're taking care of all of that for you. It's so full service, it's fully furnished, whatever the case might be. So we just make it easy for you, and you're going to love it.
Right.
And then you can focus on the things you want to do, and maybe not so much about the physical product, for example, but all of the services that we tailor to your needs. So we have this interesting balance at times. But yes, we absolutely do that. Or they're like, please don't listen to my dad who's here.
Right.
I'm making the decisions.
Right. Final question.
Yes.
Hospitality is always about anticipating, right? Anticipating needs and seeing what people want maybe before they know that they want it. What do you see? How do you see this sort of 5 years down the road, this model? What needs are you anticipating that are coming down the road?
I think it's going to continue on the same trajectory of sort of time and pace. It is not slowing down by any means. What I think in particular that everyone always needs to be aware of, again, it just goes back to the experience and the lifestyle. We always should remember that people are buying lifestyle per foot, not price per foot. So in my mind, the whole lifestyle aspect will be at the forefront. And I think the product itself, and even the hotel amenities and services, of course, again, that's that checkbox. But it's going to be, how can I make this experience so memorable for the long term? And that's a real challenge, as many of the brands continue to grow and, different parts of the world that you're operating in.
Sure. Well, thank you so much. This has been wonderful. Really
Thank you.
appreciate it.